riding to the Reckless Ben and Bricks and Minifigs situation. It's really looking like Reckless Ben is going to win this.
The Lego scandal is going federal. We're going to talk about it today on The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and I've been covering this Bricks and Minifigs scandal, the Lego scandal, really from the beginning. And we have a new massive turn here today as the case appears to be heading from state court to federal court. So first of all, some background here.
How did that happen?
June 26, Ben, that is Reckless Ben, and Victor Wynn filed a notice of removal in the U.S. District Court for Utah. That is the federal court. So essentially, that is the one that covers all of Utah. There's one district in Utah, so it's not like Florida where there's several districts, like a North and a South district. There's just one for Utah. So they filed it in that district and said, hey, we want to remove this to federal court. Now, BAM, Bricks and Minifigs, has 30 days to fight this motion.
Are they going to do it? They probably shouldn't, actually. They should just give everything back. Just give it all back. Honestly, they should give more at this point for putting them through all of this trouble.
And while this is going on, there are also ongoing mediations. So the mediation is ongoing, that discussion is ongoing, and that has been ongoing since the state court RICO case was filed by Bricks and Minifigs Corporate against Reckless Ben. So they're allowed to keep talking. They're allowed to keep going through the motions of trying to settle this outside of court. And that's very, very important. But what's also important is this message. Recently, a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing and promoting addictive platforms. They knew their apps could contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but did not share those risks while prioritizing profits. The recent historic verdict underscores the consequences of those decisions. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. You can use the link in my description or scan the QR code to take a short quiz to see if you qualify for a case. You may be entitled to a potential recovery of over $1,000. All right, so let's get into this federal removal. So this just came down. Obviously, you see the in this post here, the lawyers for Ben Schneider, his company, and Victor Wynn have filed a notice of removal in the district court, saying here, generally this freezes all proceedings until the federal judge decides whether they will take jurisdiction or remand the case. So this is accurate. So essentially, they're going to need to decide what to do now with this removal. So now that they're saying, hey, we want to remove this to federal court, the judge now has to say, okay, is this permissible? Is this not permissible? Are we going to allow that? So what are some of the facts that lead us to this being something they can do? Well, if you look over here, Victor Wynn is a resident of California. Brian Mansell, who agreed to this and consented to this, which is very, very important here, is a resident of Oregon. So there's diversity of citizenship between the plaintiffs and defendants. Diversity means they're not from the same place. They're not all from Utah. This is not a case where everybody is in Utah. They're all Utahians. Sorry, people from Utah. I probably said that wrong. But you see, that's the primary reason, and that's a very good reason to remove this to federal court. And there are several advantages that do come along with that. We'll read some other reasoning here. Plaintiff Baker Bricks, LLC, alleges in the complaint that it is a Utah corporation. A corporation shall be deemed to be a citizen of every state and foreign state by which it has been incorporated, and the state or foreign state which has principal place of business. Baker Bricks, LLC's principal place is Utah, and its certification of organization is filed in Utah. Plaintiffs allege that the verified complaint that Baker is a Utah limited liability company. Taking this as true, which we will assume that's true. I don't think they're going to fight that they're...
Honestly, I gotta tell you, you lost me. I don't know what any of this shit means. I'm just waiting for some kind of news. You can have the explanation. It's there.
A Utah company. The actual plaintiff entity in this lawsuit is Baker, the Utah LLC, not the now dissolved Oregon entity whose trade name Baker is using. Salem Baker Bricks itself was administratively dissolved on January 15th before this lawsuit was filed. In addition, the members of Baker Bricks LLC appear to be Brandon Best and Josh Johnson, who are citizens of Utah, and as shown in the application for reinstatement they filed. So they're saying, hey, look, these guys, this corporation is really a Utah corporation, but we're going to try to get diversity here. And this is a massive advantage for Ben for multiple reasons. First of all, there's stronger First Amendment and anti-SLAPP protection. So First Amendment, free speech, that's going to be very strong at the federal level. And all those
See, I know what this means. Yeah, this whole thing was bullshit where he couldn't release that third episode. I and the entire internet was so excited to watch that third episode.
SLAPP motions, that's a SLAPP motion is a...
Dude, let me tell you, when that thing comes out, the internet is going to absolutely explode. Everybody's going to forget that they're not going to be able to buy physical games from Sony anymore, and probably Xbox also, and just any system ever again. Anyway, that's a different video.
Strategic lawsuit against public participation. So anti-SLAPP is essentially protecting free speech, saying, hey, you can't try to silence Ben with a lawsuit. This can't be a strategic lawsuit to silence Ben. So Utah's anti-SLAPP laws will apply in federal court, and there'll also be very strong First Amendment protections there. There also will be a better shot at dismissing or weakening RICO cases. Now, federal judges are very familiar with RICO. They are well versed in their RICO claims. So going into federal court with judges that know RICO might give them a better shot of dismissing it, particularly as they argue, Ben argues, this is really a cobbled together case based on, bad facts, based on things that aren't true. So weakening and dismissing the RICO claims might be something that would be more advantageous at the federal level. Also, it's perceived as a neutral forum. So federal courts are often perceived as more fair because of their procedures, because of the judges. It's not going to be somebody who's perceived as a local judge who might be beneficial to the local Utah business against the foreign Californians and other people from other states. It's going to be a area where the procedure, the judges are used to people from other jurisdictions or used to people from other states, and therefore it's somewhere that is perceived as more fair. And generally, I would say federal courts are very, very fair when dealing with diversity cases. Also, they would get a chance at a fresh review of the TRO. Now, we're going to go into the...
Yeah, federal courts being fair, though, is not good for these small corporations that are trying to sue people.
Temporary restraining order and what happened with that on a separate video. So make sure you like this video, you're subscribed, because that's going to be a whole separate video where we talk about the TRO. But they're going to get another bite of the apple if they go to federal court. They're going to get a chance to look at that and tell the federal judge, hey, we think this is, this is crowding our First Amendment right. This is taking away our First Amendment rights. And a federal judge might be willing to say, you know what, even though this was a win for Ben, because I do think Ben is still winning when it comes to TRO, I think he would be able to win harder in a federal court.
He's definitely winning the internet, even if he loses this whole thing.
Also, in terms of strategic leverage and settlement and procedure, all of that is going to be more fair. And also the leverage, the visibility, the power that Ben has, that's going to be increased by moving it to federal court versus state court. So Ben is going to be in a better situation in that mediation, in the negotiations with Bricks and Minifigs, in order to come to a reasonable settlement with them. So let's go to my judgment. So in judgment, I think it's an excellent tactical move by Ben's team. I think this was very wise for them to do to try to move this to federal court. So big up on Ben's lawyers. I think they're doing an excellent job so far. And this is something that will change the game if they're able to get it into federal court. And it'll be perceived as more fair procedurally and will also protect Ben's speech. I think his First Amendment rights will be best protected in federal court. I'm not saying that his First Amendment goes away in state court. That's not at all the case. But I do think that federal judges are very careful about the First Amendment. So they might be even more on Ben's side when it comes down to the rulings. And that's what I think a lot of people are looking at is, hey, how are we going to protect his freedom of speech and his ability to make videos and make content? Now, this is not a win for Ben. Ben doesn't automatically win because it goes to federal court. However, it does massively increase his leverage. And I think Bricks and Minifigs is now pushed even deeper into a position position to settle. So Bricks and Minifigs keeps taking L's. They keep be pushed back and back and back on their position. And I think Bricks and Minifigs didn't want to settle with Ben. I think that they wanted to kind of fight this out. But the more that he's fighting back with these procedural moves, like moving to federal court,
and the more the internet roots him on,
the better position he's in. And I think they can come to a better settlement when they eventually get there, which is what I think this will come down to in the end. But I want to know what you guys think.
I think that this whole situation is entertaining as fuck. And I hope that they crumble, because I love to watch these shitty corporations crumble. I'm not completely anti-corporation. I'm just anti-corporations that don't do things that I want them to do. Moving on!